Hello, sorry for if this is a low quality recording. I am not where I usually record. First of all, I am using Toonsquid. This silly little app right here. But you can also use Ibis Paint, and Capcut, which I don't think I actually have on my iPad. But I personally use Toonsquid. Okay, so we're gonna create a new project. Honestly, that's kind of simple. Sorry. Create. Wow, we have a blank canvas. Now, what do we want to animate? Well, I'm just gonna animate a simple sway. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to animate how I would perceive the body. So like that. Okay, we do not, I will say this now, we do not have to put that much detail in this. Okay, so sorry. We're going to click on this onion right here. This will let us see our previous layers. You can also mess with your onion layers if you simply hold down. I shouldn't have it this way, in all honesty. It should be more like this. Okay. So now we're going to draw where they would be in the middle. We're doing the bare minimum right here. This is just the kind of bare minimum. Okay. Now we're going to extend that for 5 frames since the beginning part is also 5 frames. Also, your frames per second will be very, and I mean very important. Okay. Now we're going to go into our next frame. And if you want to, you could just copy from the first frame and flip it over, but I don't know how to do that on Toonsquid yet, in all honesty, despite me making this tutorial. Okay. Okay, and now, hold on, I think I did mess up a bit. Yeah, see? Okay, you can always mess up. If you mess up on where you want your position to be, just click on this little mouse tool and move it over a bit. Boom. And then you go back to paintbrush, and then we has to go here and set this to 15. Okay, here's our building blocks. Okay, so this next part is very important. Notice how it looks very not that smooth at all. That's okay. What we're gonna do is we're going to split it off at one point. Doesn't matter where, you can always adjust it. And we're going to double click this, or yeah, double click, I don't know why I did that, and clear the layer. Of course, you need to have onion layers on. Onion layers are going to be very important now. And now we're going to slightly move where the circle would technically be. What we want to do is we want to shift how the circle would look, which means you can be more precise if you'd like, but that is an option. Okay, so here's our first in-between frame. It still looks a little blocky, that's okay. We can change the time if the Toonsquid wants to actually work. Come on. No, I'm not trying to hold you down. There you go. Okay. See, notice how this first part is looking a lot smoother? What we're going to do now is there's going to be this 2 squares on top of each other. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer, and what we're going to do now is make this first layer a lot more precise. Or not the first layer. A layer that's going over this first layer, technically. Okay, there we go. It looks a lot more precise and correct. And already it's looking a lot better for these first 2 frames. Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to turn onion layers back on. I forgot to say this, but when you're editing this frame, please turn onion layers off. It'll make your life so much easier so you don't draw on the wrong layer. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to split the drawing. Sorry about that. And then, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to clear the layer. And then we're going to draw the in-between frames for the in-between frames. Funny, isn't it? But this will help us get not a grip, but a grasp of how smooth we want it to be. Because I noticed, this is just my personal preference, that when you draw a frame before or after the first movement, and then a frame before the first movement ends, it helps a lot. So, sorry. I think I'm a little sick or something, but that's okay. Oh, that's flat. Okay, I'm just going to do this real quick. So let's say this was our first frame. This is our second. What we would do is we're going to split more frames into one. But what I typically do is, these are movement frames to make it look more smooth, obviously. And then we're going to go in the middle here. That is going to be our center movement frame. It's going to be the main focus. What I would usually do is, depending on how long the frames are, I would typically add frames before the movement ends and after the movement ends to make it look a lot more smooth. Now, if the movement at the end has like moving hair, like it sways back and forth, what you would do is you would add a few more frames at the end, and that's kind of how you would be responsible for that. Of course, this is not exactly as round as I was hoping, so I know it has a auto circle tool, by the way, before you go and yell at me in the comments. I know it has an auto circle tool. It's more so of the fact that I personally don't use it because the way I draw my faces are a little more ovally than a complete circle. And that's because of the style I use for art. Okay, so notice how we need to make this go flat from here to here. What we're going to do is we're going to go slightly above our last frame's shoulder and then move it to where it goes like straight but goes through the shoulder or arm, neck thing. Yeah. Okay, and then we proceed with the rest of the animation like usual, where we just move it down a slight bit. Let's take a look at this now. Notice how it already looks a lot smoother? But it's still going too fast. So what we can do is we can lower the frames per second, and boom. Now I'm going to go to 18, see how that looks. Just continue adjusting until you find what frames per second you're comfortable with. Okay, I have my animation how I like. But now we can also, since I do want to make this tutorial as short as possible, I will be removing that because we do not need that much. Okay, notice how it looks very stiff when this dude of ours is just standing there menacingly, staring into our eyeballs. Okay, so a recoil frame is typically when, let's say there was a ball, it was going down, it wouldn't just stay there. It would recoil and bounce back up. So what we're going to do is almost exactly that. Now that may be an issue, the fact that it gets... Okay, so that's going to be our first issue. What we're going to do, because it's a mess up. Everybody messes up. What we're going to do is we're just going to ovalize the head real quick. It got a little too big. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shorten that frame. Or what else we can do is we can just completely redraw the head if we want to. We entirely can. Nothing is stopping us. Or you can do what I like to do, where you just kind of completely resize it. And now, notice how the head looks like it fits in better. But we have an issue. All the other frames' heads are ginormous. What we're going to do is we're going to select the thing, the head, and we're gonna shrink it around a bit. What I'm going to do is I am going to be using our frame after this one's. Okay. So now what we do is, notice how most of our heads are circles now, but this one is now too big of a head. It does not match the rest of the animation. What we're going to do is we're gonna match up the head with the next frame. Then we're just gonna move it to the side slightly in order to fix that. Now let's take a look. Now the head stays a consistent shape. Okay, now we are going to add recoil frames. What we're going to do with that is we are just going to draw a slight off circle, like it's just going to be a little side shift. Okay, now what we're going to do is, let's see, 1, 2, 3. We're going to turn this into 2 frames, and we're just going to swap these little guys around. Now, let's see. That looks so much better already. Okay, so these are just our sketch layers. We are going to do even more sketch layers. Hooray! So now what we are going to do is we're going to go through and turn down the opacity on this. So now it's a little more see-through. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. You're going to click on this plus right here. Do not click on audio, video, image, or image sequence. This will mess with it too much. What you're going to do, because we're not adding audio to this, we're going to add a layer. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to click the properties. Notice how we have nothing yet? That's because we haven't drawn anything. What we're going to do is we're just going to begin drawing our character for the first bit of the frame. Now what we're going to do is just continue drawing them. This is just meant to be a simple animation. Just remember that it's supposed to follow the laws of gravity. So if your character has something that naturally weighs down, that should be heading downwards, like the hair right here. This hair right here would technically be going down this way and not going out this way. Okay, time for frame 3. I am probably going to end the recording and then finish once I've drawn all my characters' frames. Okay, so I did all my frames. So, now that I've done them all, what we're going to do is I'm doing outlineless. But if you're doing an outline for your animation, I highly suggest first outline everything for every single frame. But for me, since I'm doing outlineless, I still do have to technically outline. I will say this now. But what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we just did. But this time, we're also creating another layer. Yay, more layers. Would highly suggest renaming your layers. For example, this one would be sketch. Or what? Okay, you know, we're just gonna do this the easier way. So that one's good enough. Okay, and then we're going to rename this one as colored. Wow. Because for colored, you don't have to do as much work, in all honesty. The only issue is I don't have the reference for my character in here. Notice that? That's okay, because this is my character, so I can color it however I want. But if you do want to add a reference for your character, what you would do is you would click on image, and you would click on import from photos, not files. Okay, so I just want to make sure. Once you have finished the coloring of all the frames, you can delete your sketch layer. Now, adding a background is optional. Animating would be the same way how you would animate this. And yeah, that's all you really had to do. Congratulations!